Hi guys, welcome to another painting tutorial. Today we're gonna paint a mirror carp and we're starting right now. The reason I chose this bait is because it has a flat body, so it means that I have no engraved scales or anything on here, because a mirror carp has this leathery skin and then some scales on there in a very irregular formation. So if I would use this kind of blank or something, it would be much more difficult to resemble this flat-toned leathery skin. Alright, next up is some Wicked Detail Sepia mixed with 4030 and some 4011 to thin it down. Mix that for a second. Little test spray. Alright, I think the detail brown will resemble the leathery skin of a carp very well. I'm gonna put a very light coat of sepia brown now. And I'm gonna leave it very irregular. Alright, I still have the same paint in my chamber. Wicked Detail Sepia. Now I'm gonna take my kitchen foil again, my plastic kitchen foil, which is wrapped around a little piece of cardboard, and I'm gonna spray a lot of paint on there, really wet, so I can take this just regular paper towel, dip it in and use it as a stamp to stamp some darker spots on there, and then I'm gonna wipe them out a little. Why am I using paper towel right now and not just another piece of kitchen foil is because I want this to absorb a lot of paint, so it makes it kind of faded. So I don't want too much paint on my bait. I don't want really dark spots which stick out from the background. I want them to blend in with the lure. I want them to blend in with the paint that I already got on there. So first my paint on to the panel. The reason why I do this in the airbrush is because I mixed 4030 and some thinner in there. So if I would just put paint on the panel itself and then start to mix it with everything, I would have like too much paint. So now I got all the control I want and use as much as I want. I can use very little by just spraying a little bit, but I can also use a lot. And I use my cup in my airbrush as a mixing cup. So I'm gonna make this a little bit irregular, like a stamp. You see, you got a few points sticking out. Take some paint, just dip it on there. And wipe it out. Then we get this very nice, irregular, nice type of leathery carp skin. Now we don't need to put too much attention on the head because we're gonna paint over that soon. So it's mostly the body we're going to do now. And the nice thing about these transparent paints are, especially the Wicked Detail series, you can put on very light coats like we did now and go darker and darker and darker as we put more paint on there. So I can even darken up this area even more. Get this really nice leathery look. So as you can see, it starts to get really nice and irregular, like a real leathery carp skin. I love it. Now this is also important why you do this on a bait with no scales or anything on there, because if you would have scales, a lot of paint will get trapped between all the cracks and they will get really dark. So you will be actually painting the scales separately, and you want this kind of leathery skin effect. So that's why you can only do this technique for this effect on this kind of lure surface. There we go. Super pleased with how this looks already. Really gives the feel of a leathery carp skin. Really nice. Right, the next color is Wicked Detail Moss Green. Well, Wicked Detail Moss Green is actually the perfect color to darken the mirror carp's back, because it has this greenish look on the top of its back and on the sides. It's also a great color for perches when you want a dark green on the top, or roach patterns when you also want a dark green on top. Actually, a lot of fish have dark green on the top of their on the top of their body, as well as a white belly. Alright, now it's time to lay out our scales, like every beautiful mirror carp has. Now I'm going to use these two new stencils from Lure Blanks. These will be available at the shop as well. Now none of these are really big, because you don't want the scales to be too big and like dominate the whole lure. A really nice mirror carp has only a few scales over the lateral line and then a few on top. So that's why we went for not too big scales, so we can do both small lures with these and bigger lures with these. But even bigger jerkbaits, like 15 centimeter jerkbaits, they are easily done with this bigger stencil. As you can see, it almost covers the entire bait. And the fun thing about these scaling stencils are also you can start from a point wherever you want. You can start with these and then lay on top a few of these big ones and then end with small ones. You can even tape off the ones you don't want to paint, so you only spray on the ones you do want to paint, so you get no overspray. So you can really play around with this stencil and create your own kind of effect with these. But I'm gonna take it the easy way right now. We're gonna use a small one. I'll see how we'll align it. But yeah, let's take some black inner chamber now. Just black paint. It can be opaque, it can be wicked black. Doesn't really matter, we just need black coverage now. Now, since this lure tends to go a little bit upwards and the stencil goes downwards, you can just turn it around as well and then align it how you want it to be. It doesn't need to run all the way to the end of the lure. So I'm gonna put my masking tape on here, and I will explain you why I put masking tape on there. Now, if you want a perfect imprint of your stencil, it is super important your stencil touches your lure. If it doesn't touch your lure, your paint will go a little bit to the outside and you will get this faded line instead of a nice tight line. So it's super important. If you want the perfect imprint, then you need to make sure your stencil is touching your lure. If you don't need a perfect imprint, then you can leave it just as it is. Now we got our stencil on. The reason why I use masking tape is because I would be holding my stencil the whole time, and now because of the masking tape I got one hand I can use again to press the stencil against my lure to cover a certain area I don't want to spray in. I can do a lot of things with this hand again, which I wouldn't have if I wouldn't have any masking tape there, because then I would be holding the stencil. It would be moving around the whole time. So masking tape is your best friend. Alright, opaque black in the chamber. I'm gonna lay down our scales. Now, because of the engraved gill plate here, this one is really difficult to get them to touch the surface of the lure. So I'm gonna press down as good as I can. and just like that, put it on there. Now I want the scales all the way up till this one. And for this last one, I'm pressing down the stencil again, so I make sure it hits the lure. There we go. Our scales are being laid down. Now the other side is always a little bit more difficult because I brush with my right hand and I don't got so much control with my left hand. So I'm going to have to do this a little bit off camera here. And of course it would be really cool to have some scales on the back as well. So there we go, guys. Our scales are laid out. Super irregular, going from small to big. You can also take the other stencil and start with a few big ones and then go on with small ones, or you can take these big ones and then go on with these small ones as well. You can just do it however you want. I just took the easy way. Alright, so now I got my wicked gold, or you can take whatever gold you want. And you can do two things now. You can either align your stencil again and just spray over it with your gold, or you align your stencil and you take some plastic kitchen foil again and you're gonna dip it on there. Super important is when you want to align your stencil again, you don't want to do it exactly. You want it to shift your stencil a little bit to the front, so when you spray it or when you paint it, you will leave a black line at the end of every scale, which is super important because that will give depth to your scale. So if we align them and match them perfectly, like so, and then just, my tape is already stuck, go a little bit forward with those, like so. So now actually I'm not perfectly aligned with my scales. I shifted a little bit to the front. So now when I paint everything, there will be still a little bit of a black line visible at the end of every scale. So we got that aligned. I got my plastic wrap here, and I got a little piece of plastic wrap right here, which I made a little stamp from. It's important it's kind of round this time because we want to go in that stencil, so we don't only do the outer sides or something. So we spray our gold on there, dip our kitchen foil, and then I hope you can see that, guys. Yeah, but I think my paint is a little too thin for this. Yeah, as you can see, I need thicker paint. I see there's still some outer edges. So as you can see, our scales start to get shape, and it's kind of messy. So I will try to just paint the rest of them. Might go better. It was a great idea, but not everything works, you know. So to get this black line in the back, we again need to align our stencil, move a little bit towards the front. So when we paint over it with our gold, we actually leave a black line at the back of every scale. It's a super easy trick. Now the gill plates of a carp are also a little bit goldish, and as you can see, I lost a little bit of paint with the first time I put on the tape. So I'm gonna put some gold over there as well. You know, I can also just touch it up with a little bit of paint. Now we made like a kind of a subtle dark spot out of it. Because yeah, sometimes things go wrong. And it's not really that visible anymore. We'll continue putting some gold on the head as well. Now you can call this lure done, and it looks really nice. But I'm gonna do a little bit more to the scales than this. Because if you look at reference photos, then you see there's a lot of black going on between the scales as well. So I have some black magenta in my chamber now, and I'm gonna freehand between the scales a little bit of a shadowing. I'm just gonna dust it on there, nothing more. Low air pressure, enough thinner M4030 to give you good control over your paint. Right, so I did some touching up on the scales now with some black magenta, some freehand shading on the back of every scale. And now I darkened the top of the head a little bit with black magenta as well, just to make it a little bit darker. And I'm gonna do the side of the head as well. And then the back of the gill plates. I'm also gonna shade those a little bit. Like so. So what am I missing more? And to finish everything off a little, I'm gonna darken just the first part of the head as well. So now it's time for the eyes. So I'm just gonna put on the eyes that come with the blank, because I think they match this pattern just perfectly as it is already. There we go, guys. A mirror carp. That's too close to the camera. Let's see. You can see all the detail in there. Also the back, really nice and clean. This is gonna be great. I really like how the head turned out. The nice dark shading with the sepia brown. Now as you can see, the dipping technique for the scales, it didn't go really well. It went through the stencil, and you see you got some smudges there. But there is irregularity on the scales, which is nice. So it's not that bad. It's quite okay. I can live with it. The other side though, when it's just airbrushed on, you do see a huge difference. It's very clean, it's spot on there, only there where it needs to be. And the back as well. That is just super cool actually, I really like that. So yeah, I'm really happy with the result. Also, the background, the base, looks very lifelike because of we used the dipping technique with a paper towel, and that looks really nice. This did really turn out great. Maybe next time we'll put a little fin on it, like here, still some space for a little fin, but for a simple slider, this just looks awesome. The stencil and the paints that I used as well are available on Lure Blanks. I will leave a link in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something and see you next time. Bye bye.